Hey, everybody. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants Radio. I'm Nick Smith, and we've got an incredible show tonight. So we're going to be talking about how to be courageous in your life. We've got Laban Ditchburn and a special guest, Tony Schmaltzy. You guys are putting together something crazy in Florida in September, which we'll talk about that as well. But, man, welcome to the show, guys. We're super glad to have you here.
Oh, super glad to be here. This is amazing.
I second that motion.
Yeah, I'll third it. So I'm going to let you guys kind of take the floor as we dive into this. You know, Laban, I'll lean over on you to get us going in the dialogue, and it's going to go wherever it goes. So if we get off course, let's just run with it. We'll just have fun.
Well, what an honor, and it's so great to be back with the Giants. You guys are doing some inspirational work, and I think I just wanted to acknowledge the work of my co-host. I don't know if it's 3 or 4 of us, whatever it is. Tony Schmaltz has created something in his head that is eventuating into a snowball of momentum, and it is phenomenal to watch. And happy to go into more detail if required, but maybe you
could if you want to talk about that event. Why not?
I think Tony, I think you should talk about it because this is your baby.
Oh.
If you want, I got a little nice video we could play real quick. You ready for that?
Yeah, please.
Play it.
We're going to do a little Giant shout out.
Oh, it cracks me up every time I see that.
Yeah.
So this is like Laban was saying, this thing has completely snowballed. I mean, it started as just an idea and never thought it was going to become as big as it is. And now we've got a lineup that's to die for. I mean, including yourselves on this show here. I mean, we just had a conversation today with Waldo Waldman, who's in, and he's got enough connections. If we needed to do some more, we have some more going. You know, we've got Les Brown, Tom Ziegler, the 3 of us, Waldo Waldman,
Kevin Sorbo, man, it's just like the list goes on, and a lot of the folks that we know as well.
And so like Laban said, it's just kind of snowballed. It's like it started with one conversation and another conversation and just kept on going. And we're the tracksuit does need its own shout out. I agree.
I won't do that every time, but yeah, shout out to Tracksuit Thursday, started by Townsend Wardlaw.
Oh, by the way, guys, I want to also acknowledge, thanks for throwing up the Schmaltzy signal tonight, which is kind of like the bat signal, but cooler, to have me on tonight. So I appreciate it. So this event's going to be huge, and it's going to be the best lineup that you've seen since the pandemic. I mean, it's the best in-person lineup that we've seen in years, 2 or 3 years, and there's something to be said for that. And everybody's been so great. The venue's been great. I was just down talking to the sales team today, trying to get us discounts on rooms. I mean, this is just happening, and it's happening like that. And it's the vision. The vision started, and those of us around here started believing in that vision, and it just keeps on going.
Yeah, isn't it crazy that it went from an idea? This was just a possibility, and now it's a reality. This is a reality. This is a done event. And right. All these people that are coming together, are you guys good diving into the journey of this a bit, of the creation of it? Do you want to use that as a segue to courage?
Absolutely.
Love to. Yeah.
Who wants to dive into that?
Well, I can start, Tony, because then we can sort of segue across to sort of where we are at now. And trying to keep track of the tentacles of magic that have been flowing out of this giant octopus of value and amazingness that is this amazing community of people that we're associated with is it's impossible to keep track, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the long and short of it is that the majority of the speakers that we've been able to get, I have had relationships with via the podcast previously. That's how I know them. And it's not until I've been put in a position of opportunity to say, hang on a second, I'm connected to these people. Like, let's ask them that. It's only become super duper apparent the power of the courageousness back in the day to reach out and have these people on the podcast. And, the topic of courage and how to be more courageous, it's showing its brilliance every single day of my life. And I hope the lives of everyone else that's been impacted by it. And it's just mind-boggling.
Let me ask you a definition here. So you say courageous. And as you use that term, I like the research side of things and operational definition. We have our dictionary definition. But if you had your Laban Ditchburn definition of courage, what would that be?
Probably just a photograph of my head.
Yeah. In the dictionary under courage, there's Laban.
Yeah. I honestly, in all seriousness, I think it'd be me holding a telephone to my head.
Okay.
And
why is that?
Because this all really started after a failed business in 2019. I went out for my very first entrepreneurial pursuit at the start of 2019 and created my own recruitment business. I'd worked in technology recruitment for 12 years prior to that. Came up with this brilliant name, Carnivore Consulting, Recruitment with Bite, BYTE, because it was IT recruitment. And it was a total unmitigated financial disaster. I didn't do a single recruitment placement in 12 months, but it ended up being the greatest blessing in disguise. And I use all that terminology for effect only because towards the end of the 2019 period, I was so desperate to drum up business that I was forced into calling CFOs and then CEOs. And it was those cold calls back then that, and occasionally I would have some reasonable dialogue with a CEO. And I was like, well, there's something in this. New Year's Day 2020, I ring Brene Brown. She picks up the phone, and this is before I had my book, before I had the podcast, before I was even clear on what it is that I was supposed to be doing in this speaker coaching training space, right? I knew I wanted to be a speaker, but I rang her and she picked up the phone. She said, "Hi, Brene speaking." I said, "Brene Brown?" She said, "Yes, it is." I said, "It's Laban Ditchburn from Melbourne, Australia." She was quite taken aback as how this strange New Zealand Australian man had gotten her phone number, and she said, "How can I help you, Laban?" I said, "Brene, I'm a huge fan of your work, and mentors of mine have all instructed me in order for me to succeed, I need to be around people that are much further along than I." And I
thought you were going to say, "Brene, I've been stalking you for months."
That's on the B side.
Yeah.
But I said, my mentors have said that I need to be around people much further along, and I wanted to know if you were keen to share some ideas, exchange some ideas. I didn't even know what that meant. She said, "Laban, I'm about to sit down and have New Year's Day dinner with my family, but if you'd be so kind, send me an email with what you had in mind. I'll come back to you." So I created like a 1-minute introductory video, which if I was to play back to you now, I would burn down in embarrassment, and a short email about why I was emailing. And she replied back. She replied back 3 days. She said, "Look, Laban, with what I've got going on with university and family and kids, I can't give this the attention that it requires." And that sparked this chain reaction of, well, hang on a second, that wasn't quite so hard. And it all flowed from there. I got Les Brown on the podcast when I had 10 subscribers. Then he writes the forward for my book, gives me the idea, and then it's just snowballed from there. So I have virtually no fear now when it comes to calling anyone.
Yeah, and when you started, was that the case though? I mean, when you first got on these calls, were you just bold and courageous and you had it all together?
Absolutely shitting my pants. Sorry, kids, if you're listening, because that's the only way to accurately describe what was happening. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
But you think about what are the most terrifying things in life? It's the unknown. It's the never having experienced it before to see whether it is actually that terrible. And I think that therein lies a lesson. We just need to get ourselves familiar enough. It's like speaking on stage for the first time. It's most people's worst fear. But for those who have done it a few times or been on podcasts or written a book or, called that Pixar executive, Nicholas T. Smith, it starts to diminish a little bit. What about your story? What about your story, Nicholas, with these cold calls?
Even that, learning that I can do it, and I could be scared shitless and still do it.
Yep.
And I think that was the biggest lesson that I got out of that, calling the executive, and he didn't pick up. I got a voicemail. I still haven't heard back from him. But there was a letting go of the scaredness of the worst that's going to happen is this guy's going to say no. But I've also learned too, I talked to Steve Hardison right after that, and he said, stop trying to be somebody else when you call, just be you. Tell your story, do what you do, because I can't be a Laban Ditchburn. I can't be, I was listening to the book called The Third Door. Have you heard of that?
Haven't read it, heard the name, nothing about it.
The guy hacked, the Price is Right so he could get enough money to start writing his book and interview all these famous people. And he freaking wins. He wins on The Price is Right. And that was his lead-in story. And he got to meet Larry King, and he asked Larry King, how do you interview? And Larry King says, don't be Larry King. He says, be you. That's why Oprah's so good at what she does, is she's Oprah. Laban's so good at what he does because he's Laban, right? Tony's Tony. So if we just stop trying to be somebody else, then we start showing up more courageously because we're being ourselves, right?
Yep.
Preach.
No, you're right. 100%. In fact, I just had a conversation with somebody today, and I told him, I said, I thought about being somebody else, but everyone else was taken. So, gotta be myself here.
Other than the tracksuits, right?
Well,
all being talented.
So it's funny you guys talk about these calls though, because that's, I used to consider myself pretty courageous already. I'm an extrovert. I'm not an introvert. I had no problems with conversations, but I still was shitting myself when it came to even these things that Laban and I are doing now. A couple of these guys we're talking to, reaching out to Les Brown directly, reaching out to Kevin Sorbo, I'm like, it's,
some of the commitments too, right? Some of the agreements that you have with these people too they're bigger than where you've been, right?
Way bigger. Yeah, way bigger. But like Laban said, it snowballs. Once you get past one, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then you get the next one, you're like, it's pretty damn easy. And even our call today with Waldo, I mean, when you start to have real conversations with people, which is what it's all about. Everyone's a person just like you and me and us. You realize these people are just people like you and me. Yeah. We had a great conversation with Waldo today, and it was the most open conversation we've had with anybody. It was amazing.
And to give people some context on Waldo as well, he's a Hall of Fame speaker, which there's only about 220 indoctrinated into that Hall of Fame globally. And like people like General Schwarzkopf and former presidents, Les Brown and that kind of thing. He's an F-16 fighter pilot in the Kosovo conflict, had surface-to-air missiles shot at him, and now is this amazing transformative speaker. And, his fees for speaking are significant, but he's just as real as you or I, or three of us. Yeah. And then he goes into service mode and he's like, hey, what can I love this project. What can I do to help? And it gives us thousands and thousands of dollars worth of free marketing information in the process, right, Tony?
Yeah, absolutely. And volunteered to put forth what would be equivalent of thousands and thousands of marketing activity, from himself. And so I didn't want to leave that call. So I had to get off the call because I had to go pick up our son from school. Yeah. And I'm like, I sent Laban a voice message later. I'm like, man, I could have talked to that guy for another hour, 2 hours, easy. I mean, it was just such a great conversation, and it wasn't stopping. I mean, we literally could have carried on for another hour or two. So it's been a blast. It's been a blast, and the best is yet to come.
One thing I haven't done yet. Do you have a link to the website that I can throw up on the board here too?
Yeah.
So maybe you can put that in the chat. We'll have you do that. But so I want to step back a little bit and look at this, kind of do an overview of it. Astronauts say that when they go into outer space, they have the overview of the Earth, and it's a spiritual experience, right? Because they actually see it away from all the lines and boundaries and all the things that we create as human beings, right? And as we look and step back from your creation and really take an overview of it, I would imagine that there's a lot of that going on too. There's this stuff you can't explain. There's these people coming in from areas you don't know where they're coming from. Right. It's part of the magic of creation. Can you speak to that a little bit? Either to the overview or the magic, either way.
So a little bit of both. So of those of us that are involved, I'm the only one so far who's actually been to the venue and seen the venue and seen what it's going to be like. And so I can actually picture this. I can picture myself on stage speaking to this audience, what it's going to look like, the tables, the chairs, the seating, everything. I was just there today. And so that's, I think, where it really took the biggest impact for me was when I took that first trip down to the venue and made the agreement with them. And I got to see the space. I had my tape measure out, checking the stage and what I was going to have going. And from that point on, it's just been a vision after vision after vision. And so it started as a vision that was smaller that just kept getting bigger and bigger. And now I'm not just seeing what's on stage. I'm seeing each speaker on stage. I'm seeing how we perform. I'm seeing you speaking on stage, Laban speaking on stage. Me speaking on stage. I'm seeing the MC and the in-between. The whole thing is that kind of what you're looking for here, Nick?
No, you know what? I'm going to go with that because that's part of creating the vision. It is what I'm looking for. And the more clear you get on your vision, the more you can put yourself into it, the more you connect with that emotion of it, the feeling of it, the more real it is. And it's as though it already is, even though in reality, the objective reality, it's not measurable yet. It's not here yet, but it is. This thing exists. And so the more people can get in touch with that, the more hope they have towards its creation. Right. And then they take action towards that creation. And so you're exactly describing it, because this is a component that I think people miss is you really want to sit in the vision of this creation when it's complete. When you're on the other side of it, I mean, we look at this is all complete. That stadium is filled and you had all these speakers come in and it was a successful event. It already happened. And you're sitting on the other side of that, feeling that relief and that emotion and that elation. You can already connect with that right now. And if you can connect with that now, that's your string through the uncertainty.
Yep.
Is that accurate, or did I just make that up?
No, that's 100%. So Laban, do you remember what I said to Waldo earlier today about the vision?
Well, I have a rough idea, but do tell.
All right. I said, we were talking to Waldo earlier, and I said, one of the things that I share with my clients and with pretty much anybody is have a vision so powerful that it gets your ass out of bed in the morning. And that's what this is right now. You know, I've always been pretty good at visions and putting myself like it's already happening or it's already happened. But this one kicks my ass out of bed every morning. Yeah.
Do you wake up a little nervous?
No, I wake up stoked, man. Okay, I wake up fired up to start working on this and get more. Who am I calling today? Who am I talking to today? What's going on today? I mean, Laban hears from me almost every day, dude. I'm so fired up today. We have a phrase that we can't really share on here, but
it just ends in yes. All right. Yes.
We'll fill in the rest.
Well, here's something that really profoundly struck me. We're staying in Austin at the moment. We got invited into the movie room last night. We watched. It's like King Richard. It's the Serena and Venus Williams movie. Okay. And the timing of watching this movie, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's the real life story of the Williams sisters, the tennis players, and their father and the vision he had. And before they were born, he had this destiny for them. And it was like, so let it be written, so let it be done, to quote Mr. Hardison there with the Deuce Latui thing. And that's exactly how I feel is happening with this, with Tony Schmaltz and this other event. And I love being in a place of unlimited possibility. That's the one, Rebecca.
Ryan was like,
she's even got the military lingo going.
Trying to have a serious dialogue here, but that is genius. And it's witnessing this thing in motion. You know, the people that are getting involved, the speakers are talking about the next event and, you know, how you can get all the footage from the first one and making sure you got enough videographers. And it's like they have this that's already done in their head as well. They've seen this before and they see the energy that's being created.
Yeah. So Laban, you just hit the nail right on the head there. That is one thing that is making this so much more powerful for us, is that everybody who's involved, everyone who's speaking is in on this vision. Everybody is seeing it. Everybody's seeing this vision and what's happening, and everyone's on board and pushing for it. That makes this that much more powerful.
So I want to hang on to that. So hang on to that collaboration, because that's a huge component. I want to go back to this comment here.
Yes.
You
No,
guys
I
see
saw
that?
that. I wanted to comment, but Laban was on a roll. I didn't want to jump
Yeah, he
across him
was
there.
on a roll. We'll let him go. He had that Foxtrot Alpha, whatever going on. Uniform, uniform
Foxtrot
Charlie.
uniform.
Yeah, Kilo.
Yeah.
So it's not about what the vision is, it's what the vision does to who you are being. And notice that's powerful. That's
super
powerful.
powerful.
Yeah. What comes
Thank
up
you,
as you
Steve.
hear that?
When I read that the first time, when it first popped up, it was just kind of a reminder, because that is this vision, and this thing that we're doing is creating who I'm being, and it's creating a different being than I have been in the past. And I love who it's creating, you know, and what it's creating, and who I'm being because of it. And it's just pushing me that much further.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a creation of you as you go into this, and that vision is forcing you to step into that. It's really pushing you to grow.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see is that, you know, some coaching is like having a battery powered car without the batteries, right? You have all the components and everything there, but the batteries aren't there. So there's no juice in it. So it kind of doesn't do anything. Right. And I see a lot of coaching programs focus on that, where they're focused on the system and the process and the method without working on the batteries. Right.
Right.
And the creation of you is that power. It's that energy that gets fed into anything that you create. It doesn't matter if this was the vision or something else, you would be successful at it because of who you are. You are the batteries in whatever you put yourself into. Right. And so the vision is just one of the results. It's almost like an outcome from who you're being. Right. It's beyond. The creation is just simply the creation. It's evidence that Tony Schmaltz was there. It's evidence that Laban Ditchburn was present, right? That energy once flowed there. That's what it is. But your energy and you showing up, Laban, I see your head shaking there. What's coming up as you hear this?
Oh, I'm just nodding in absolute agreement. I'm getting, like, I've had a big day giving a lot of myself with what I'm doing with trying to relocate to the United States and, you know, create all this other stuff that's going on in addition to this stuff. Right. And I'm alive with energy, man. I'm a high energy guy. You know, for those who don't know me, like, this is what I'm like majority of the time. And it's because I'm around people like Tony Schmaltz, like Nicholas T. Smith, like Melissa Ross. Malika, that's a good name. Malika Ross, and it's a doppelganger. And honestly, I refuse to be around energy vampires. They can go whistle, because I love seeing possibility. I love seeing hearing Tony's audio messages on iMessage and just like giving it the Foxtrot uniform Kilo Charlie, you know, like dyslexic. So I once went to a toga party dressed as a goat. Sorry, a little bit dyslexic.
I picture your Echo device called dyslexic, like instead of Alexa.
Hey, dyslexia.
Dyslexia.
Yes.
What's the true meaning of dog?
Who is dog? Yeah. But so the aliveness, and I would imagine there was a point in your life where that wasn't present, where there was some emptiness, where there was some downtime, right? Where you maybe at one point were the vampire in some degree.
Oh, amen. And it's funny, with the benefit of hindsight being the perfect science, right? I've always been a big idea guy, but I was surrounded by only small idea people. And when you get shut down as many times as I used to, you stop verbalizing these big dreams and you settle into mediocrity. And I just don't do that anymore. I've become consciously incompetent, or getting to a point where I'm consciously competent. And I think that's a powerful metaphor for the whole journey that we go through. You know, we can hear one thing from Steve Hardison and come up with the world's best courage coach and absolutely transform your interpersonal relationships, your career, your business, your finances, like that.
Yeah.
Because one person allowed you to see possibility. And that's what I think we have an obligation to do as coaches and speakers and authors and, you know, poets and graphic novelists and whatever the heck else we do.
Right.
Well, this whole event is designed to do that. It's to wake people up to their power. And You know, the crazy thing about it is that the power is already there.
Right.
It's just masked by all this other stuff that we believe. It's all this other stuff that we think is us, and it's just covering its scale. Tony, what came up with that?
Well, your comment. So, Steve Krivda, who's also going to be speaking on stage with us, he sent me a video today, so we could piece together on some of the promotional stuff. And one of his first line was, "Imagine you discovered that you already had the tools you needed for success and just didn't know it yet." And so what you just said is just that. People, every one of us has those tools. We already do, but we get pounded by limiting beliefs, self-doubt, all the different terms we like to use. We just pounded. We live in a world where we're so hit with negativity from every angle. And many of us let that take us down and bring us down. It's like you were saying, Laban, you've been a big thinker, but you've always been around small thinkers. I feel the same way, very similar. Whereas when we learn and we understand the power that we have within, it's already there, and how to utilize that and how to go right through and beyond those limiting beliefs and those negative thoughts and negative self-talk and self-doubt. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're human. It's going to happen. It happens from time to time. Nick, you and I had a conversation about that recently. So it happens, but it's being able to come through that and out the other side that's really takes us to that next level.
I can't imagine Tony Schmaltz being down, man.
It doesn't happen often, but
But when it does,
yeah. I had it. I get into that space too, and it's a remembering. It's just a remembering that we do have that power. The upgrade your life. The idea is not people aren't coming to get a download. It's not like, hey, come get the latest version of firmware so that we can update your life, right?
Right.
No, we're just helping you remember what's already in there. It's simply you already have this.
This is direct feedback from people that are some of the keynote speakers, the paid, like the high, the Lesers and the Waldos and the Kevins. Like,
yeah,
there has not been an event with this diverse, and that word's been thrown around a little bit, but like the very diverse nature. Like normally the Hall of Famers do an event where they're all pitching from the stage and stuff. There's not been this kind of fresh face speakers interwoven with like seasoned professionals, and just the experience, like being stuck in Australia for 2 years. I did one in-person event, one. And so the next major one I'm going to do is going to be on a platform with the best in the business, and Les Brown and Waldo, and
right.
And how did that happen? Well, I believed it could happen. I'm on my way to becoming known as the world's most positively influential speaker. I say it enough, and I'm Venus and Serena Williamsing that mother flipper.
So what would you say to somebody that said you just won the lottery? You just won the lottery with this. Like this, it fell into your lap. You're lucky. What? I can see your face already. Yeah, tell me about that. Like, what's the distinction between lottery and what you've created here?
This is way more fun than the lottery.
Way more fun. And it's not relying on chance. We created this. We are creating this. The lottery relies on a chance, happenstance, whatever. It's the odds are against you. The odds are with us here because we are creating this. We are not letting. It's like one of my favorite lines is Han Solo. He's like, "Never tell me the odds." Well, you can tell me all you want. I'm just going to tell you to kiss off because I'm going to go right past it.
I think of Dumb and Dumber, right? So you're saying there's a chance. That's where my mind goes.
Right?
Yeah.
But people are already getting stoked. I mean, Rebecca, who's watching right now, she's commented a couple times. She had a little glitch while registering, and we worked through it today. And she sent me an email back today. She's like, everything's paid for, everything's booked. I've got my reservations. I got my passport updated today. She's like, who flies from Australia to Florida for something like this? She's like, I do. And I'm like,
she's coming from Australia. She's in Melbourne. Oh, shout out.
Yeah, you do. And she's coming all the way across, and she's ready and stoked, got everything set. Yeah. And I'm like, people are loving that this is happening. This is, like I said, the lineup of people is bigger than you've seen in a couple of years, at least live in person. I mean,
let's go back to collaboration, because your commitment Your commitment to this is creating commitment in others to their own creation around this, which is amazing to me. So when you're talking about collaboration, getting away from the term of the lottery, getting into the creation of it, there is some luck that comes up with that effort that you're creating. There's magic. You can't explain it. These people come in and they start working with you and they want to be a part of it, right, and they don't even know why. And so there is that. And then you have the collaboration and the commitment that comes from people that are putting themselves in a seat at this event. You guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, so Laban, he said it to me, that was last week, I think. He used the Field of Dreams reference, build it and they will come. And that's kind of what's happening here. And
yeah,
one of the things I like to talk about is just connections, relationships, building relationships, because you never know who, there she is. You never know who is going to have that next connection. Laban has a lot of connections, and we've been able to make connections from there. And then, we talked to Kevin Sorbo. He's got connections that are going to help out with this. And Waldo's got connections. So when you talk about the collaboration, it starts here and then it just grows and grows and grows. And it's incredibly powerful to see how it's growing with each conversation we have, whether it's with each other or with somebody new or with somebody else. It continues to grow.
Yeah.
Let me share something just mind-boggling. In addition to what you're talking about there, Tone, I'm staying at a friend's place in Austin, Lake Austin, and it is a ridiculous. Literally, Matthew McConaughey, Sandra Bullock, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk live down the road. Okay, to give you an idea. And I met this guy through a guy, Tommy Breedlove, who I had on the podcast a year ago. Him and I had a really great connection on the podcast, and since then he's introduced me to a number of people. Where I'm staying, John and Ginger, they're like in their 60s, and they've welcomed us, Anna and I, into their home. The first night we're there, we arrived pretty late on a Friday night, and on Saturday, Ginger, the wife, said, "Hey, y'all, do you mind if we invite some friends over to meet you guys for dinner?" And we're like, "Hey, more the merrier." So, Jim Cathcart and his wife turn up. Now, for those who don't know Jim Cathcart, he wrote like the Acorn Principle. He's the most decorated motivational speaker on the planet. He comes in, we end up singing the Beatles. He's a really brilliant guitarist. He takes a copy of my book home and then sends me an unrequited endorsement for the book, which is mind-boggling, and then invites me on to speak at this virtual event that he was running today. He's since joined up the world's best mastermind group. Like, this is in 72 hours. Like, how did this happen? What's the likelihood of me ending up at this house in Austin and one of the best motivational speaker on the planet? Maybe on par with Les.
I've got a theory. I've got a theory of why.
Why?
It's these killer impressions that you do of a Texas accent.
Well, I didn't want to disrespect anybody, but I'm going to tip my 10-gallon hat to someone. It's going to be one of you two boys.
He's one of us, guys.
Right?
Invite him in. Let's sing the Beatles.
We were just the bands who made it very big, that's all.
That's amazing. I mean, the timing of it, too, the speed of it, how quickly it comes about. And people are already buying tickets for this event. And to go back to the idea that just not too long ago, this was an idea. It was an idea. And what turned it, Tony, from an idea to a creation? What was it that was pivotal and a catalyst in that?
Actually, it was all of us together in Arizona. It's back to you talking about Steve and thinking bigger. I mean, I remember a comment when Steve was on stage about how you want to create $100 million? No brainer, how he's helping people create stuff like that. And I'm just, and I'd had this thought for a while. I've had a vision for 2 or 3 years about being on stage. I was on stages when I was younger, a little bit during my career, but really, really wanted to be on stage again. And I was sitting around talking to actually Jen Walter and a couple others there at the after party, and just chatting it up. And I'm like talking about this event and how I really wanted to do something like this. And God, I can't remember who it was because there was a group of us around, but somebody's like, "What's keeping you? What's stopping you?" And I'm like, I couldn't think of a dang thing. I'm like, I could make a bunch of damn excuses, but there's literally nothing stopping me. I literally know people in the resort, at the resorts down here. I know the people we've met. I'm like, there is literally nothing I sat there for a minute and I went, Nothing.
Yeah.
I'm like, here we go. I'm like, yippee-ki-yay, it's on its way,
Amazing. So you leaned in.
Yeah.
You leaned in. One of my favorite words is intention. Intention creates, and intention comes from the Latin intendere. It means to stretch toward, right? And so you started stretching toward this thing. You started leaning in and stretching toward it, and then your commitment stepped in and said, let's keep going. The commitment is what's keeping it going. And now you're in it. Like now it's like,
there's no turning back now.
Yeah.
And it was literally the week after we got back from Arizona, and it was within a couple of days. I'm reaching out to resorts about their venues, and it was within a week that we had this thing going. Yep. See, there you go. And yeah, that's right. I did. I asked you right there. And so I started calling around, and finally within a week I found the spot, and a week later it was reserved. And then a week later, Laban and I are talking to everybody, and it's all coming together.
So notice the little stretches. Melissa knows a little bit about stretching with yoga.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a tiny bit.
And imagine if, it's all these little stretches that come together and create this masterpiece that you're putting together. And Melissa, you could probably speak to this. Like when we stretch too far, too fast, sometimes what happens?
We pull a muscle.
Yeah.
We go too far.
These guys are doing things that are big. I mean, you're stretching far, but notice that it's incrementally coming together, but those increments are getting massive.
Right.
Yeah. I don't even know where I was going with that, but man, I love to get off track.
That's okay.
We're getting Melissa Ross involved in the conversation.
I know. And
yeah, that's what we're doing.
Gosh, talk about courage coming in halfway through the episode. I don't know what's going on. I had to figure out some technical issues. But what I will say, I heard you guys talking about the event, and what I will say is I did the same thing. Tony was talking about the event, his event in Arizona, and talking about how he had invited Ryan and Nick to be a part of it. And without even knowing what it was about, I just said, yeah, I'm in. And I was on the phone the next week. I was on the phone the next week with Tony, and we were having a chat about it. And I just said, yeah, sign me up. I'm in. And I didn't even know what to expect at that time. I didn't know who else was speaking. I didn't know anything else about it. I just dove right in.
And that was 3 or 4 weeks ago. And now we've got a lineup. We've got a website. We've got, everything's like just.
Let's talk about Let's talk about that because that's powerful. We had Rachel Smart. She was part of the League of Giants back when we had the League of Giants all together. And she said yes to speaking. Rachel Hollis was going to speak for Juice Plus on a national level. It was a big deal. And they pulled Rachel Hollis and they asked Rachel Smart if she would speak instead. And she said yes. And she didn't know how she was going to do it. She didn't know what she was going to talk about. She just said yes, and she would figure it out. And she did. She did phenomenal. She did an incredible job on it.
She was incredible.
And so saying yes to things, saying yes before your capacity is even there or you even know how you're going to do it. Can we talk about that? Laban, I'm going to throw that over at you.
Well, I love that statement. It reminds me of a television commercial growing up in New Zealand for a company called Smith City. And they were like they used to sell furniture and hi-fi and stuff. And they used to say, we say yes more often than this is in the 80s. We say yes more often. You can imagine the blonde Bob, right?
How are you not more famous with the singing and the impressions?
Give me 12 months. Give me 12 months.
Yeah.
It's coming. I mean, where does getting no get you in life? Unless it's a boundary setting exercise, which I think, Melissa and I have been talking about this. I'd love to ask you about that in a minute. Yeah. But where did you get in your life not finding out what could have happened?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And for me, I made a lot of mistakes, but it was always when I was drunk or high. And now that I'm not drunk or high, I've got the clarity to follow my intuition. Every time I follow my intuition, I'm right.
Yeah. Man, pause. Yeah.
No, and I'm going to add to that because I think it's okay to say yes in a way that's not putting yourself in a place where you don't really know what's going on as well. Like oftentimes, and Laban and I, this is what we were talking about today. Oftentimes I will say, thank you for that opportunity. I'm honored, let's jump on a call to discuss further about what that entails. So I'm not saying no to it. I'm just delving deeper into. I haven't said yes either, but I'm delving deeper into what that looks like. So I'm not pushing the opportunity away. I'm looking at it to see if I need to set a boundary there, and whether it's okay to jump in, right?
Well, I remember back. So the conversation in the parking lot with Steve Hardison, right? I said, "Can you?" And he says, "Yes."
Mm-hmm. Right away.
Like, okay, so what you're saying that whatever I ask, you can do it? Well, yeah, the answer is yes. Whether he does it or not is a different question. It's a different question, right? The can you is, yeah, we all have capacity to either do it ourselves. And he clarified this later, to either create it ourselves or to enroll others to help us in the creation of it.
Right.
And so the can you isn't the question. It's will you, and are you committed to creating it and following it through?
Right.
And so, yeah, Tony, what comes up with that?
Well, I 100% agree. And I agree with what you just said about what Steve said and what Laban said earlier, because every path that, Anika and I have gone down over the last 19 years has all the good has come from a yes answer, and not all of them have been the right yes answer, but it led to a right yes answer, if that makes sense. We all stumble over and trip over ourselves because of maybe a yes answer that we gave, but it all leads down the path to where you are now. And I'm really, really happy with where we are now. And none of that would have happened without making those giving those yes answers.
So I'm going to lean back over to what Laban said about the no, right? It's so easy to look for the no. Like somebody says no, and we're immediately accepting of it. I'll take it. I'll take two of those. You got another no in there. I'll take that too.
Right.
And yeah, Laban.
No, I'll just give you a great example. I used to work for the company in Australia back in the early 2000s that used to sell the white and yellow pages. You guys remember the phone book?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished third, I think, in the national sales ranking. But the guy who won it was asked to speak. And his name was Ben. He turned it down. He had a fear of speaking that was crippling. And I did it. I got given the task. They skipped the second guy and gave it to me for some reason. Maybe I don't know what the deal was there. And I remember 3 years later, because I was good friends with Ben as well. We were really good friends, him and his wife, Monica. 3-4 years later, Laban, man, I really regret not taking that opportunity. 3-4 years later, expending all that energy, emotional energy, worrying about, what could have happened. And I don't want to have that experience. It's like forgiveness. When you forgive someone, you free the tether of tyranny, I call it. So I don't have to expend any more emotional energy on it. I can just get on with creating with elite human beings like you lot.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I'm going to take that in for a minute, because one thing I learned from Luisa Milano, right? Morano? I'll figure it out. Townsend's wife. Say that. Luisa, is you don't see your own reflection. You can only take what's given to you from other people. So that's where, things like you're saying are impactful. And I received that, man. Thank you. And that gets reflected right back at you, and as I think about people like what you just said, this guy spent 3 years reflecting and ruminating on a regret that he had. And it's not an issue that he had that regret, but that it keeps carrying forward. And the reason it keeps carrying forward is because we keep judging ourselves for even having that judgment. And then it spirals, and then there's no healing from it because we just keep that wound open.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this theory and this thought, this hypothesis, we'll call it, because I don't, we're working on it still. But that the more you can create acceptance and grace for that space for that to be present, the more you can heal from it, and the more you can do what you guys are talking about. Because that's the component that allows you to do what you guys have just done.
Right. Absolutely.
Staying in creation zone, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
what other thoughts come up with that, Tony?
And acceptance zone, like you just said. I mean, we're human. The judgments happen. We judge ourselves. We judge others. It happens. But it's creating that acceptance and creating that path forward that doesn't hold us, that we don't stay in that place of judgment. You know,
Right.
it's like Steve says, I am that nobody deserves my judgment and everyone deserves my
Mhm.
compassion. It doesn't mean that he doesn't judge. Doesn't mean that we don't judge just because somebody
Yeah.
doesn't deserve it. Even ourselves, we may not deserve it, but it's still going to happen. But it's like you said, creating that space of acceptance and that positive outlook and able to move past the judgment to the forward thinking is what keeps us in that creation mode and keeps this kind of thing going.
Well, I'd imagine, Laban, I've read your story. I love your story. I love that you author and you read it on Audible. If you haven't got it on Audible, you got to get it on Audible.
I'm listening to it on Audible now.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Because Laban's got a way of telling stories. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But if you were defined by your story, you wouldn't be here today. If that were your definition of you, right? Not the courage, like you said, the picture with the phone book. If the other one was you, you wouldn't be here today. And that's what happens is we define ourselves as that and we carry it forward and we cut our own selves off from our possibilities, our potential.
Well,
Yeah, and sorry, I was going to add to that too, because I like that you said we cut ourselves off sometimes, but because I think sometimes we say no, thinking that we can't do it how they wanted us to do it, how they've presented it. And oftentimes we can go back and we can say yes in our own way, and yes to it looking differently in a little bit different over here with a little adjustment, and we can still take that opportunity. And I've had experience with that. I did it. I worked for the federal government, and I did it in a federal government position. I was on assignment in Ottawa, and I got offered a full-time permanent job, an in-desk job back at home. And at the time I had just found out I was pregnant, and I was on this assignment in Ottawa, and my husband at the time had just signed on permanently to move to Ottawa. And I thought, I want this position. I've been working for this position for 5 years. I don't want to say no to this position. And I went back to them and cut a deal such that I would continue my assignment in Ottawa, go on my maternity leave, and take the position a year and a half later. And they said yes.
Wow.
They held the position for me. I got signed onto it. I got sent on the assignment, and I took the position a year and a half later.
Wow.
Just quietly, how powerful is Melissa Ross turning up these days?
Right.
There's
Right.
a confidence exuding out every single 100 trillion cells of your body right now, which is sexy AF.
Oh,
I second that notion.
thank you.
So
And
many
I just-
movies. Yeah.
I
Laban,
just
go ahead.
wanted
You
to,
had a
I
thought
just
there.
really want to acknowledge your beautiful words about the storytelling, and you'll notice whenever there's an opportunity to speak or to be on a podcast or whatever it might be, that's a deliberate thing. That's a deliberate thing that I've really spent 3+ years trying to get really good at, knowing my story so that they can be a 10 out of 10 in my head and a 10 out of 10 in yours. So that the message that I learned from it, maybe you can learn too. And it's sticky. And that's why I wanted the book to be wildly entertaining, because you got to make light of all the negative stuff that's in there.
Yeah. It builds on itself. Hugh talks about fertilizer. He says it's fertilizer for your growth.
Yeah.
And you can look at it that way. If you look at it that way, it's nutritive, right? It has all of the things that you need to grow. And it can feel pretty dark at times, but it's because of that you are who you are today. It's because of what you went through, Laban, that you are who you are. Tony, same thing. Melissa, same thing. And it's because of that you were able to grow in capacity to create this event,
Right.
which, speaking of courage, is at the epitome of courage. And there's going to be more beyond this. Like, this is just, we're just getting started with you guys. I'm getting the sense of that.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
grow on
Yeah.
that, right? You have that moment of courage, you go all in, and then you grow from that event, and it just keeps going. Ryan.
Right.
Well, there's a couple of things going on in the background that we are not at liberty to share just yet. But if they go ahead, I don't want to.
Don't blow
pump
it.
it up
Don't
too
blow
much.
it. Don't blow it. Let's just say if they go ahead, they will be from here to big.
Yeah. So
We're getting
the
Elvis.
declaration-
We're bringing Elvis back from the dead. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Too many cheeseburgers.
So what else would you share around courage? Thinking of this event, what you put together here, and the idea of courage. Some people say that courage can only exist in the face of fear. That fear has to be present for courage to exist. What do you guys think about that?
Tony, Melissa, you want to go first?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Courage is facing fears essentially, and so I mean, it's okay to have fear. It's part of being human, but it's finding that courage to overcome it and knowing which ones are important to overcome and which ones are not. There is good fear and bad fear. I'm afraid to jump off a building, but so I'm not going to overcome that one. But I mean, when it comes to the constructive fear or the fears that are keeping you from your happiness, keeping you from your perceived success, those are the ones to really look at why. Why am I afraid of this? Why am I not calling that person? Why am I not going down and booking this venue? Why am I not reaching out to this prospect or whatever it is? Finding out, getting into the really why you're not doing it and facing that fear, because there's usually a fear behind the fear, and having the courage to overcome those is what separates us from those that aren't making it, and if for those listening, if you really want to make it, it's finding that why behind the why behind that fear, addressing that, and do it anyway. Do it anyway. Just do it, man, because it gets easier. You conquer a fear, the next fear becomes easier to conquer, and then easier than that. And then you become like Laban, who is afraid of nothing now.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Tony, because I think it's easy for us, because we're normalizing this stuff, but for people that it might be starting out in the journey, it's like, well, where do I even begin? And let me share something that dawned on me recently. I believe that I've been able to generate this level of momentum for a couple of reasons. One, my darling Anna. For those who know Anna Maidenova, I'm the world's best courage coach, but she's the most courageous person I've met, right? I know. She says yes to me, right? Hey, let's go to Mexico. Let's go to, yeah, okay. So there's that. But I also have so many other projects in the air that if one of them drops off, I've still got 99 other things happening. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm like overwhelmed with things, but there's so many positive experiences that happen daily. I get emails from people or what, like there's enough things. That's the result of all the work, the book and the speaking and the podcast, and people leave messages on YouTube and, so hopefully I'm articulating what I'm trying to say here, but that for me has been a real catalyst so that when the shit does hit the fan, it's like, oh, well, I know it won't be long before something awesome happens, and then it does. Okay.
This is powerful. If people can hear this is powerful, because without purpose, research shows without purpose, people die. They die off emotionally. They die off. They either take themselves out or they die early before they need to without purpose. And what you're designing or describing here is a diversification of purpose. Like you have purpose everywhere. And it's not like you have irons in the fire, you have purpose, and that creates hope and passion and drive inside of you. So if I were to describe you, you are creating yourself as courage. So the idea of fear might not even come up in that space when you're being courage shows up, right? When you're being in purpose, any one of these can take off, any one of these could fail, but I have 99 others that are going, so it's not going to impact me. So you diversified your purpose. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like maybe a good analogy is if you are, and I've seen this in real life. People that have gone through a marriage breakup and haven't dated for 10 years, right? They go on one date and it doesn't work out, and then they suffer the same rejection attack from the divorce. And it's like you put all your eggs in one basket rather than going out and dating 20, 30 people over a few month period. Like that, like you're really setting yourself up to fail. And I give of myself a lot. I understand the law of service, and we've all had one-on-one conversations here, and Ryan and other people listening or watching, and what you see is what you get with me. I love being able to share whatever I've been given. I'm just telegraphing the stuff across. because it's been given to me earlier.
Yeah.
That's all. And then I get it back in some other way from you crazy guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
True statement.
That is
Yeah.
very true statement.
So what else is coming up? What else would you like to share that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
I mean, Laban, he just kind of triggered a thought there when you were talking about, our conversations with each other, and you can be yourself, and that's it. That's it. So when you talked about purpose, it's not just the purpose of where you're going, what you're doing. It's finding that real you. I mean, it took me 42 years to find Schmaltzy, I mean, it's 40 years. It's like to find that real you is really helps that purpose. You really can't have that purpose until you know who you are. And then let yourself be that person. Let yourself be that person. Don't tap dance around it. Don't Texas two-step for Laban down there. Just be that person and let that person out. Let people see that person. And not everyone's going to like who that person is. Not everyone's going to like Schmaltzy. Not everyone's going to like Laban. Guess what? Most successful people I've met, most of us that we know, if you're not pissing somebody off, you're not doing it right.
Yep. Didn't I just say that to you a couple weeks ago, Nick?
Yeah. And I've done my fair share.
Right?
Especially all the Pixar executives with all these voicemails.
Yeah. Like, who is this guy? Still doing that. But yeah, I mean, when you're yourself, it's not this space of, I don't care how this impacts you. It's not that disregard and that self-esteem like you see in prison. Like, prisoners have high self-esteem. I don't know if you knew that. They have high self-esteem.
Yeah.
And so it's not a self-esteem issue. It's what you're doing with that. You're thinking you're superior over somebody else. Like, you're gonna be you and authentically you. And some people aren't going to align with that. But in you being you, you're going to know who you align with, and that's going to help you in your journey. Right. Because then you can choose who you're around.
Well, the acceptance and the realization of who you are and the ability to be that person is what makes you successful and what makes you get out there and say yes to all of those things. And I was just having this conversation with someone today. I really noticed, just even at the Arizona event, that I had experiences with a few people that made me realize how they experienced me. I had never had that experience before, where someone had described to me how they experienced me. And I had these people actually describe to me how they experienced me. And that even boosted my acceptance of myself. It boosted my not my self-acceptance. I was self-aware and accepting of myself, but it boosted my confidence, maybe if confidence in what I do and what I give out. And I knew that I was that person, and I knew what I had to offer to the world. But to hear someone say how they experienced that in their own words was, it boosted everything. It gave me even more courage and more confidence, and really solidified what I already knew inside of me. So that brought me to another level. Right. And when you have that confidence and you have that solidified inside of you, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter what's happening around you. It doesn't matter what your body looks like. It doesn't matter, like it, and I was talking about with this person today about, how they were trying to have this self-love for their image, their physical image. It doesn't matter what your physical body looks like. It's inside of you. It's deep. And it will take you everywhere. It will allow you to love your body if you don't,
Yeah. It's powerful. Yeah. It's powerful. It's all right in here.
Yep.
And so I've seen Melissa step into that. I see each of you stepping into that. It's amazing what happens in our worlds when we start to accept ourselves, because then we really can look at what's possible. Because the more we reject ourselves, we get spun up in that cycle of rejection. Like you said, Laban, 10 years later, you're still regretting something that you did a long time ago rather than moving on from it. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. If you guys were to share, I love to end with, a piece of wisdom, something that you would share as we wrap up the show, or a realization from this show. Would you do that for us? And I'll start with Tony Schmaltz up in my left-hand corner.
Well, the biggest piece of wisdom that I always like to share is what we just talked about. Find that real you, whoever that is. Be that person. Don't worry about what other people think about that person, because it's important to what you think and who you are. Be that person, grow that person, live that person, and be happy with that person.
Love it. Laban?
I'm going to, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read a
Yes.
small paragraph from the end part of my book when I wrap up all the random lessons, right?
Oh, you're gonna ruin the ending for me.
No, this won't. Great plug, Tone. There's a bet on you, the final chapter, and it's number 3. It's own your flaws. First things first, a flaw isn't even a flaw. It's part of your character, and it helps define your uniqueness. However, when you burden others with your misery, 90% of people don't care, and the rest are glad it's happening to you. So stop whining about it and start taking ownership of your fuck-ups, your mistakes, broken promises, bad ideas, terrible relationships, and whatever else belongs on this list. I'll go first. I was a fat, lazy, drunken gambleraholic who used drugs, sex, and pornography to get through my days. See? It's not that hard.
It's such a great book. To have you read it too is an experience. If you've got the book in hardcover, you can kind of imagine. It's like Laban doing an impression of a Texas accent. I try and do Laban's accent in my mind, and I just butcher it. So to hear you speak it in on Audible is phenomenal. So thank you for sharing that.
When I was listening to it, I thought, oh my God, nobody should ever read this book before they hear it on Audible. You need to hear it on Audible first, because it just makes the entire book.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Melissa, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, you know what? My final thought is I'm gonna bounce off of Tony there. Is that nobody's really paying attention to you. They don't care what you're doing. They care about them. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about what's going on with them. They're inside of themselves. Nobody's watching you. Nobody's paying attention to you. Nobody cares about what you're doing. They care about themselves. Just go out there. That lets you just go out there and be you and not care what anybody thinks. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
I'm inspired. Go ahead, Tony. You had another thought there.
Just so many going through. It just reminds me, because one of the things that I like to do, and I have my clients do, is I assign schmaltzy tasks, which are literally comfort zone pushing tasks. And it just a picture of Jen Welter with her Batman stuff on here with you guys.
Yeah.
One of the tasks that I actually give people, and I love doing myself, is I'll walk into a busy grocery store or shopping center and just randomly walk up to a person, get real close next to their ear, and just say, "I am Batman." Just to see the reaction, and it's that comfort zone. It's like, who cares what somebody else thinks? Nobody's paying attention to you. They might after that, but but it's fun, And sorry, that was a total sidetrack.
Yeah, it's perfect. We'll take the sidetrack. It's part of the show.
Pulling a Nick scenic route there.
Yeah.
What about you, young Nicholas? Final thought?
Yeah, the perspective on courage and what it takes to create courage in your world, and it has become a practice for each of you. That's the one thing I'm realizing, is that everything that we create in our lives is a practice. It's a repetition. It's a ritual. It becomes routine. It becomes habit, and then that creates our world. But it's going through that clunky process of being really terrible at being courageous that creates courage. Rich Litvin was my coach years ago, and he said that, how you create courage. He said it's by being courageous. You simply go do courageous things, and eventually you become courageous. There's no secret to it other than you do that thing, and then you repeat it enough times, it becomes who you are. And what I've seen in all of your stories is that's what you've created, is you've stepped into being that, and now you're that. And this event is just simply a reflection of who you're being. It really is. Because you're stepping into this. And so that's doing the doing. It's powerful. That's it. That's all on my mind. And Batman now. I love it.
Robert Pattinson's Batman, or
I don't know if anybody's going to watch that. Yeah. Probably more Christian Bale.
Emo Man.
Emo Man. That might be.
He could do with some sun, that guy.
Well, that does make sense. No sun. Guys, thanks for being on. For those that are watching, continue to join us, continue to talk about this. If you haven't bought your tickets yet to this event, it's going to be the most powerful event of the year. And so if you're ready to upgrade your life, make sure you go click this link and follow that. And if it stretches you, stretch yourself to create it, because who you become in that creation is powerful. You're already starting the upgrade. And so really step into it. Be courageous with it. Man, just love you guys. Thanks for being on. For those that are watching, go make it a giant day, and we'll see you in the next video.
Yep. Love you guys.